Review of the Rapid Automatized Naming and Rapid Alternating Stimulus Tests, also known as the RAS, by Brenna Davis. A little bit about the RAS. The tasks in this assessment require students to rapidly name color, objects, numbers, and letters. It is appropriate for ages 5-0 to 18-11. It is not a measure of vocabulary knowledge, but the ability to retrieve known words from that knowledge. It measures serial naming speed when the subject is required to alternate between two types of symbol sets in a fixed pattern. Uses for the RAS include early identification of children at risk for reading and learning difficulties, ongoing assessment of processes underlying naming speed and reading fluency. It can identify possible weaknesses in skill areas relating to reading, and measurement of the development, intactness, and efficiency of the basic word retrieval system. The demographics for the RAS are set to the right there in that picture. When scoring the test, the raw score is the number of seconds it took a student to name all of the stimulus items. Standard scores provide the clearest indication of an examinee's performance. Raw scores are converted to standard scores using tables A1 through A23. Standard scores then fall within a range of very poor to very superior. Percentile ranks are calculated using the tables in Appendix A, while age and grade equivalents are found in tables B1 and B2 in Appendix B. Examiners require minimal training and assessment. It can be given by classroom teachers, special education teachers, reading specialists, or school psychologists. Examiners should study the manual and can practice administering the assessment before they give it on a student. Implementation of the assessment can take as little as 5 to 10 minutes. To administer the RAS, you will need the RAS test stimulus cards, an examiner record form, and a stopwatch. When administering the RAS, there are 6 different sections that you'll complete. Those tests given are objects, colors, numbers, letters, and then a 2-set number and letter alternating pattern and a 3-set numbers, letters, and colors alternating pattern. When administering, you present the stimulus card to ensure the child knows the items. The first picture up at the top is the stimulus card. It just has 2 rows. Do not administer if the examinee fails to correctly identify the stimulus items on the cover of each card. This lets the examiner know if the child knows the names of the items. Then you prompt the child to name items as quickly as possible, indicating the row and left to right direction they will follow in. That the stimulus card opens up kind of like a book to see the rows that the students have to identify. That is shown in the picture below. Only correct a student's incorrect answer during the practice on the stimulus card. For example, if they said palm for the word hand, you would correct them to hand. But once you open up and start the timer, you don't correct. When you say go, begin the timer. Circle any incorrect answers and write their responses above the stimulus. If the examinee self-corrects, you write SC above the stimulus. Stop the timer when the examinee names the last item, record the time, number of errors, and number of self-corrections. Self-corrections are not counted as errors. For the alternating sets, the set 2 and set 3 instructions are the same, just with alternating stimulus. The raw score on all tests is the amount of time it takes for students to name the stimulus. Reliability can be affected by inherent sources of error, test content, stability over time, examiner and scorer, and situation and examinee. First is just a picture of the examiner record form. It looks similar to most of the formal assessments you might see, with the space to calculate the student's testing age, the different spots for the raw score, age equivalent, grade equivalent, and percentile ranks. And then off to the right is just an example of the directions. You can see the objects there where you would circle if students got it wrong, write SC above the word if they self-corrected, and then a space to put in time errors and self-corrections. To discuss strengths and weaknesses of the RAS and its ability to assess students, I will be referring to some reviews found online, mostly by two professors, one Carney and the other one Sperling. So in the strengths category, both Carney and Russell thought that the instrument had good test reliability, which in turn can be used for such things as identifying children at risk for reading problems. Both reviewers found that this test is straightforward for administrators and students, and that the test shares a strong research base that has emerged from both research and practice. Given its history, it's not surprising that the examiner's manual states that these tests are sometimes referred to as the gold standard of naming tests. So that's kind of what they had to say. They both just found that the test is reliable. It helps to identify students at risk for reading problems in the future, and it's easy to use. It's friendly both for students and administrators. Weaknesses. Sperling found that the least stable task in the assessment is likely the objects task due to prior knowledge assumptions required. Now, like I had stated earlier, if they failed to identify the stimulus cards, you should not assess them. But this is something as a kindergarten teacher I could understand where that would be a weakness for the assessment, because there are kids who might not know. I mean, the objects are pretty basic, but there's things and they might not have the words for it. And I have some students who come in with very little knowledge and really no prior schooling. So having the words for some of those pictures might be kind of challenging. The objects task and the multiple stimuli tasks are critical for those interested in stimuli that have not reached a level of automaticity that the numbers, letters, and colors have for many learners. So again, especially as a kindergarten teacher, the automaticity of saying numbers, they don't know all their numbers yet, so identifying those letters is kind of a challenge for those younger learners. So those were some of the strengths and weaknesses. When providing scores, reviewers could accompany test scores with personal interpretations regarding meaning, possible alternative interpretations, reports for other diagnostic workups and how they relate, samples of classroom work, or further possible testing ideas. Anytime you bring test results to the table, especially to parents or district administrators, it's always a good idea to provide other samples of things that might agree with what the test results show, or could be something that shows the opposite, so you can kind of get a better understanding of where the student is or what you need to do in the future. The RAS provides stakeholders with crucial information on students' abilities, and from which they can construct an individualized intervention path to assist the student. For example, performance of kindergarten children on the 2 RAS measures predicted which children would become most impaired subtype of reader with dyslexia. With this assessment, teachers and parents can begin to observe for early intervention and can kind of keep an eye on those kids and make sure that they have all the things that they need, or they could retest in the future and kind of have a plan set to keep ongoing assessments and see where the student is growing or not making progress and keep an eye on them. My overall interpretation of the RAS is really positive. I can tell that it is easy to use, all the stuff that you need right there for you. The directions are in the booklet. There's really simple. The stimulus cards attached to the stimulus that they use for their time section, so that's great. It is very quick. I administered the two of my students in my classroom, and it went super fast, and that's always helpful. You don't want to rush through things, but especially when you have younger children, it's harder to keep their attention. So doing a test that is quicker is, I think, helpful for them. It does seem to have reliable detection, and it's great for ongoing, keeping track. So if you gave it to them once and they kind of scored low and you weren't sure, and you gave it to them again, and 6 months later, I think with its easy to use quickness, if they came up another like red flag with their score, it's a good detection for future reading struggles. So that's super helpful. And then it's spoken highly of. My school psychologist that I had talked to about it said that she loves giving it. Again, she's testing kindergartners and first graders in my building all day. So I think that it helps that it is kind of, it's almost like a game. Anytime you can time them and tell them to go as quick as they can, they really enjoy that. But yeah, keeping their attention and having them go kind of quick and show what they know, that's good for them. So yeah, she spoke really highly of it, and I think that going through the reviews, they were all very positive. So that's good to see. So overall, I think the RAS would be an effective way to formally assess your students.